Rizza Cadillac has been in Tinley Park since the year 2000. They currently have 85 employees, and that doesn't include all the other dealerships. Please join me in welcoming Dan McMillan of Rizza Cadillac, which I don't think he needs an introduction.
Well, everyone needs an introduction, but am I?
It's all yours.
Okay. I mean, sometimes when you get up here, you have to give your name and your birth date and all that, but I'm okay. Okay, so I'm honored to be here. I just want to say that I really am. I think it's great that you're introducing this. This is something I haven't seen in some of the other villages. Just recognizing, not just because we sponsor, and not just because we've been here for 80 years, though it does seem like we've been here for that long. But it's something that we've been here a long time. We now have the spotlight, and let's talk a little bit, and I'll keep it brief because it is more difficult to talk. You're probably lucky that we have these masks on because it's more difficult to talk, so I'll keep it brief. But what we really appreciate is the opportunity to do business in a town that is business friendly. In Tinley Park, and we have some comparisons. We've done business in some other towns. The town just to the west of you or northwest of you doesn't quite get it. They talk like they're going to streamline, but when we've done business here in Tinley Park and different projects, your planning commission, you do very, very well. You're rational, you're logical. So let's talk a little bit about the history of Rizza Buick GMC Cadillac. Now, the current dealership is the result of an ongoing 28-year evolution that goes all the way back to 1992. And then even further back go the roots of 8425 West 159th Street. As you know, we are located on 159th Street. I like to talk about the history of the great auto row of 159th, which was started by an amazing individual, and I don't know how many of you can remember him, Mr. Al Johnson, who was the first African-American to be awarded a General Motors franchise, and he opened up Al Johnson Cadillac in 1972 on 159th Street. So he was the pioneer. I think Apple, who's been a spotlight, came not long after him. But Al Johnson was the first on the street. If you can believe it, there were no other car dealerships on the street back in 1972 when he came. Actually, there wasn't even an Orland Park Mall at that point. There wasn't, and this town was that much smaller. But when he operated the Cadillac dealership until 1992, and then he decided to sell it. And then that's when we came in, and we had negotiations with Al, and we had a buy-sell agreement. We were purchasing Al's business, and lo and behold, General Motors stepped in at the last minute, exercised their right of first refusal, and purchased the dealership from Al instead of us, and gave it to Mr. Williams, who operated it until the year 2000. So 2000 came about. Williams wasn't doing very well. General Motors came to us and asked if we would step in and also bring an Oldsmobile dealership that we had on the other side of town and put the two together. See, it looked like a match made in heaven. It was 8 years later from when we thought we had the dealership in 1992. So it was a classic duel. But less than 6 months later, General Motors announced that Oldsmobile would be no more. Oldsmobile was gone. So now what do? Now what are we going to do with that big building with just Cadillac? So we pivoted, moved in another classic GM nameplate, the great American automobile, Buick. So now we have Cadillac and Buick. And then 2 years later, we added another nameplate, the Hummer, everyone's favorite oversized vehicle. Who wasn't amazed by those big H2s, those big yellow vehicles that drove down the street? And we did a lot of golf outings where we gave away a Hummer for a weekend if you got closest to the pin, things like that. But love the people, and I would just as a sidelight, when I would take, especially the big yellow one, home for the weekend and drive it. It was just a neat vehicle to drive. neighbors would come over. People that still didn't like, people that didn't like me would come over and say, can we just take that out for a spin? And of course I'd let them do it, and then they never talked to me again. But it was just, the Hummer was it drew people, but I think it was a victim of its own success, because then in 2009, the GM announced that Hummer would be discontinued. I think there was just at that point, there was some backlash from environmentalists, and which I understand, when it only got 9 miles to the gallon. So if you were at one part of Orland Park and drove to the other and back, at that point, gas was also $4 to $5 a gallon. Could cost you $10 just to take a 20-mile trip. But we lost Hummer. Now what do? Strange plan B that we had. We acquired a Saab franchise that was available, that was out here, that had some problems. So it was a GM franchise. Many people don't realize that Saab was actually at that time a GM franchise. So we took Saab, and within a year, Saab was gone. So we were not having the greatest of luck trying to keep that building filled. And as you remember, the Hummer building, it didn't have a lot, it was very specific. It had that big H at the entrance. So you figure, what are we gonna do with this? Going to be a Honda dealership? It's something which we couldn't do because Tom Waymeyer had that right down the street. But we knew we had a need for another franchise after we built that building. Needed something. So lo and behold, June of 2012, we ended up acquiring Tom Waymeyer's GMC franchise. And this, though, would turn out to be the solution we were looking for. At this point, we still have GMC. So we had to convert the building. Many of you have seen the building. You wouldn't remember, many of you, the way it looks now, wouldn't remember how it looked as a Hummer building, because we did put it in. It's a fairly interesting building. So if you haven't been down 159th Street recently, take a look at it. It's actually one of my favorite buildings is the Buick GMC building. And a few years after that, General Motors did come to us a few months after we got the GMC, and they wanted us to do some remodeling. And that's where I say that not more big time remodeling. We knocked out the whole front of both buildings and put new fronts and renovated the insides. Your planners were great. At that point, I have to say, everybody from the fire department to the village planners, everyone worked very well. And we have I even had Mike Benhausen tell me one time that the Cadillac building was his favorite building on the street. So when you get that from somebody else, it's you feel like you've had some success. So we completely redid our facilities. The village worked very well with us and very well during the construction. So we've always considered the village a true business partner, and we consider our relationship a vital part of the success. So the people of Tinley Park and the surrounding suburbs are really the backbone of our business. And we look forward to a long, healthy, prosperous relationship for both us and Tinley Park for many, many years to come. And we are proud to call Tinley Park our home.